We're full. Good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of the North Applications Planning Committee. I'm Councillor Deliveries, the Committee Chairman. Can I do apologies for absence first, please?
Apologies from Councillor Melvin with Councillor Tuckwell substituting.
Thank you. Can I have declarations of interest in matters coming before tonight's meeting? Councillor Tuckwell.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary interest in item 10 as I'm a trustee for the Scout Association.
Therefore, you will be leaving the room for the discussion of that item. Thank you. Can I take the minutes of the meeting 17th of July, which are in the bundle as agreed?
Thank you, Chairman. Just one minor thing. I am down listed as both present and also giving apologies.
That's a bit of a miracle.
It was the accurate version of events because I was actually I think I was in Corfu when this meeting.
So you definitely weren't here.
Yeah, I definitely gave my apologies.
Right. So we'll amend that.
I
please.
should not be down as present.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay. In terms of this agenda, there have been a number of amendments to the agenda since it was published. Agenda item 7, land at the rear of 40 Ducks Hill Road, was withdrawn by planning earlier in the week. Item 11, 26 Broadwood Avenue, was withdrawn by the applicant. So we will be considering in public and in part 1 items 6, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, and then I have 3 enforcement reports which are private and in part 2. Welcome to those who are in the audience tonight. Welcome to those who are viewing on YouTube. The public part of the meeting, i.e. part 1, will be on YouTube. The private part clearly won't be. The cameras face this way. You'll only be seen when you're sitting at the table where you are. Can I please, usual health and safety. The fire alarm goes. We're not expecting a test, therefore we will assume it's real. There's a fire exit as you came in. Your best exit would be straight out ahead of you through the next set of double doors, and there's a spiral staircase that takes you down to street level. There is also another fire exit in the corner behind me. Now please ask that all mobile phones are switched off or at least to silent. We have a very large agenda tonight, so I would ask that when your item is done, that you leave quietly for me, please, and don't congregate immediately outside the door because we will need to move on to the next one. For all items tonight, officers will give us a presentation including plans, which is in addition to the items members have already read. There is a large addendum as well tonight, which officers will refer to. There have been a number of changes to various items and additional information circulated across this week, which has all gone out to members. In terms of petitions, for clarity, items 6, 8 and 9 are petition items tonight. Item 10 is not. The speaking rights for that were exercised before it was deferred at the last meeting. There was no fresh petition, so item 10 is not a petition item. For petition items, petitioners get 5 minutes to address us. If you watch the traffic lights, you get 4 minutes green, you get a minute of amber, and when it gets to red, you've had your 5 minutes, and we will stop you. Applicants or their agents get the same. If it doesn't matter though, once it's a petition item, if the petitioners aren't here, the applicant can still address us. So let's just be totally clear. In terms of the one where it is in support, I'll only be taking one set of speaking rights on that because I'm not hearing the same thing twice. Members may ask questions of anybody who addresses us, but they may not, but that's entirely up to them. Okay, let me introduce you to the voting members of the committee tonight. I only get a vote if they can't make their mind up, basically. It's roughly how it is. Starting on my far left, Councillor Dott, Councillor Sansapori, Councillor Oswald, and then moving down the table on this side, Councillor Flynn, Councillor Haggard, Councillor Tuckwell, Councillor Higgins and Councillor Goddard. Officer team tonight, Richard Michalski is doing highways, Matt Galachewski is our presenting officer, Mandeep Malhotra is sitting in for James Roger, the head of planning, and will offer us advice. Anise Tedji is our clerk, and Nicole Cameron is our legal officer. That's everybody. I'm now going to move straight, please, if I can, to agenda item 6, 22 Breakspear Road South. When you're ready.
Thank you, Chairman.
The application seeks planning consent for the erection of a part 2-storey, part single-storey side rear extension, the enlargement of the roof space to create additional habitable space, and the creation of a basement level to form a home cinema and games room. This is a resubmission of a previously refused scheme, which was dismissed at appeal. The inspector dismissed the appeal on the basis of the impact on number 20 and the lack of flood risk information, but found that the proposals to not have a detrimental impact on the character of the area. We'll just take members through the slides. The application comprises a the application site comprises a 2-storey detached dwelling house on the south east side of Breakspear Road South, with the principal elevation facing northwest. The dwelling house is a traditional construction and detailing and includes a pitched tiled roof with a cat slide incorporating a dormer window and integral garage to the side. The property, as you can tell, the property's fronting Breakspear Road South have a staggered formation, as you can see. I'll take you through the slides to show you what the dwelling looks like at the moment. Unfortunately, photos are a bit dark. Just give you a bit of the street scene. Back of the property, slightly dilapidated at present. Oops. Sorry. Let's take you back through the plans. I'll just take you to the slide that shows the previously refused scheme and the current proposal. I think the batteries on this thing are a little bit... Oh, there we go. So as you can see, the top is what was refused. This is what is proposed. At the bottom, you will see that... So one of the reasons for refusal, which was upheld at appeal, was the impact on number 20. So what they've done is to step the extension in. At first floor level, they're not extending the property, and at ground floor level, it's being extended by 2.4 metres. Also, they've amended the basement to step it in slightly and provided SUDS information that the SUDS officer has signed off. So it's just, I'm going to take you through the floor plan. So it's the site plan, as you can see. There's the basement, ground floor, first floor, and there is a roof plan. This is the outbuilding also that's also proposed at the back of the garden. Again, this is exactly the same as was previously proposed, and no objections were raised to that, and none are raised in this regard. The proposed elevations, you've got the front, the rear, and the 2 side elevations. The original scheme, which was larger than the current proposal, was deemed by the inspector to not have an impact on the character of the area. The current proposals, as you have seen, are a reduction in the previously refused scheme, and therefore, by virtue of this, no concerns are raised in this regard. The previous refused scheme was dismissed at appeal because of the impact on number 20 Breakspear Road South. The current proposals have been reduced significantly. The house is not being extended at first floor level along the boundary between number 22 and number 20. And in terms of flood risk, again, in dismissing the appeal for that scheme, the previously refused scheme, the inspector stated that the proposal had failed to demonstrate that it would not have an unacceptable effect on flood risk. The current scheme was accompanied by an FRA and SUD strategy, both of which were reviewed by the flood water management officer, who has raised no objections. Just take members to the addendum. As you will have seen, it was circulated a letter of objection from one of the neighbours. What we've done is to go through each point. Now, I'd like to just point out that the issues raised are actually the same that were raised during the application, and if you look in the report, it's actually summarised in there, and most of these issues are addressed within the report. However, what happened is that officers asked the applicant to have the neighbouring properties surveyed properly, and drawings were amended, but unfortunately the first floor drawing was not amended. Hence we have the issue where the roof canopy of the porch and the first floor window don't appear to match up with the proposed front elevation that you can see behind me, but we've got the amended plans that were circulated earlier that are now fixed. Again, adding the plan numbers to the plans list and to the conditions, and also adding an informative. That was a couple of informatives, one relating to SUDs and one and amending landscape condition 8 to secure planting of a tree in the front garden. Shall I take you back to the site plan? If I can find it. There's a tree that is being said to be retained. However, this tree, since the application was submitted, has actually been removed. So we're asking that a replacement tree is planted. And for the reasons summarised, it is recommended that the application be approved. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Petitioner on this one, Heather Piper. If you'd like to take a seat at the table. If you press the button on the middle of the microphone, it will light up. Can you press the button on the middle of the base of that microphone, and then we can hear you. Yeah, we'll start the timer as you begin to speak.
Good evening. My name is Heather Piper, and I live at 20 Breakspear Road South, next door to the property being considered. Let's recap. An initial request to demolish the entire building at number 22 and start again was refused. The first full application was discussed last October. The Planning Department recommended refusal. Petitioners supported that stance. The committee agreed unanimously, and the refusal direct decision was upheld on appeal to the Planning Inspectorate in March. 4 weeks later, this resubmission was made. At first glance, the changes were inadequate, and after detailed assessment, they still are. Such assessment was not helped by the poor quality of the plans. They're sorely lacking in dimensions, missing key information with obvious inconsistencies and glaring errors. Feedback on these issues made by me and by others during consultation has not been adequately addressed. Nonetheless, I've worked to summarise the plans more usefully. My addendum document begins with Appendix 1, a single-page illustration of the sheer scale of the proposal, showing that this remains a request to create an enormous edifice with over 2 3/4 times the living space of the existing property, tantamount to a new house on site anyway. Changes to the front elevations can be kept in character, and whilst this prevents an adverse effect to the street scene, the effects behind the street are substantial. The first point in October's reason for refusal, the bulk of the proposed development, has clearly not been resolved. Plans to partially draw back building depth on the far right beside number 1020 would reduce somewhat the immediate sense of enclosure for us there, but beyond that, there would still be over 44 square metres of plain brick wall facing us that wasn't there before. And on the left-hand side, there's a further 1.3 metre increase planned for the 2-storey extension. In Appendix 6, I show the true alignment between the 3 properties. The plans are especially inconsistent and misleading in this respect and should be ignored. Boundaries with numbers 20 and 24 are not parallel. Any extension takes the property closer to number 24. The 2-storey extension would fall well within 1 metre of the boundary there, contrary to HDAS advice, and the longer ground floor and basement get even closer still. At the front, the extension over the garage would intrude on number 24's outlook, and at the back there would be clear line of sight between the gym and number 24's bedroom window. Refusal point 2, that the application is detrimental to neighbouring amenity, holds on both sides in Breakspear Road South and to the rear, where those at 52 Greenacres Avenue would have the gym's roof in their site, plus concerns over how sewerage is treated from the gym. Regarding the basement, here the plans excel in their attempt to mislead. They could be interpreted as proposing a reduction of either 12% or just 3% in basement space since last time, drawing the right-hand basement edge back from the ground floor wall either by 1.1 metres or by just 40 centimetres, not the level of clarity I'm hoping for when we're discussing digging an enormous hole, well over 400 cubic metres of it, so close to my home. No sectional plans are supplied at all, so how would the property sit in relation to varying ground levels? These plans are not fit for purpose. the outcome of working to them would be constant uncertainty. The October refusal stated that groundwater investigations were unsuitable too. This has not been addressed. The SUD's proposals were also rejected first time round, yet the same document was resubmitted this time. How seriously is this matter being taken by the applicant? I understand that there may not yet be a firmly established policy on basements here in Hillingdon, but one would hope to see a thorough, diligent approach by anyone wishing to undertake such a potentially risky building project, but it's not apparent in this case. This huge basement would provide non-essential living space in an already overlarge 5-bedroom property. It is unnecessary, inadequately planned, a potential risk to the property of others, and should remain as a specific reason for refusal. Please reflect on the cumulative impact of the application as a whole, the lack of cohesion and the clear errors in the plans, and the fact that all 3 main reasons for October's refusal still hold. I see no rationale for a reversal of your previous decision. I urge the committee to reject again this wholly inappropriate application.
Thank you. Do members have any questions? No? Thank you very much. Thank you. Agent or the applicant for this one?
Ladies and gentlemen, members of the committee, I thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of the applicant for the proposed development at 22 Breakspear Road South. The application is as follows. The Council's guidelines contained within HDAS advises that extensions should always be designed as to appear subordinate to the original house. The width of the side extension should be considerably less than the original house and be 1/2 and 2/3 of the main house. A 2-story extension set back at the minimum of 1 metre from the side boundary. HDAS also advises the rear extension should be allowed where there is no significant over-dominance. In particular, the extension should not protrude too far from the rear wall of the original dwelling. The 2-story rear extension meet these guidelines. The previous applications were refused on the basis of the size and bulk, which failed to harmonise with the architectural composition of the original dwelling. At appeal, the planning officer did not consider the proposal would be out of keeping with the character of the street scene. However, he agreed that the 2-story rear extension would have a detrimental impact on the amenity of the occupiers of number 20 to the south. Hence, this application has removed the element of the 2-story rear extension and revised a part rear 2-story rear extension. And it was forwarded on account of the neighbouring amenity at number 20. After a pre-application meeting with Planning Officer Liz Arnold on 2nd of January 2019, she confirmed in her email that these appear in line with her discussions. Please submit the application. As such, in terms of appearance, the proposal will be acceptable and would have complied with the policies BE 13, BE 15 and BE 19 of the Hillingdon Local Plan, Part 2 Saved UDP Policies, November 2012. Policy DM-HB 12 of the Hillingdon Local Plan, Part 2, and Development Management Policies and HDAS Residential Extensions. There are other examples of similar extensions and garage conversions already approved by the Council in the street. To address some of the comments raised by the local residents, a construction of the development will be carried out within permitted times. Furthermore, a method statement outlining the sequence of the development of the site, including demolition, building works, and tree protection measures, will be provided. The proposed development would not have detrimental impact on the neighbouring properties, as highlighted by the planning officer in his recommendation for approval of this application. The proposed basement plans and submitted documents have been assessed by the Council's flooding officer, who raises no objection to the proposal, subject to further information being submitted, which can be secured by a condition. The concerns raised that the outbuilding could be used independently of the main residence are unjustified, as the Council can use the enforcement power to ensure such action does not occur, and potential for the building to be rented out as a 4 or 8 bedroom property, creating car parking issues and more traffic and noise. The proposed dwelling will be used by the client as the main resident and will not be used for rental purposes. The inconsistency in the plans has been addressed prior to this meeting. For the reasons explained above, we request the committee to uphold the planning officer's decision for recommendation of the approval. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Do members have any questions? No hands, so you're good to go. Could you just turn it off for me?
It's my understanding that this committee refused it on very good grounds. I also believe that the Planning Inspectorate endorsed this committee's decision. I'd like the officer to clearly state how this application completely overcomes the reasons the reasons why it was previously refused. I'm also very conscious here that has a groundwater assessment been done, because that area is very clayey, and with a basement it displaces groundwater, and there's a likelihood of either heave or subsidence because of that. My own property has suffered because of my neighbour's swimming pool. Has a shadow diagram been done to the neighbour because of the development and the impact it would have on the quality of their living environment? Thank you.
Okay. We're going to pick up a round robin on this in a minute. Okay. For clarity for everybody, of course, the Inspectorate upheld 2 of our 3 reasons. So, impact on number 20 and the technical issues around the basement. They didn't uphold the first part of it, which was the impact on the street scene, so we do have to be very mindful of that. Can I have officer clarification, please? I think we'll start with the impact on number 20, because I think that's part of this. Are officers happy that the plans and the revised plans we've had this week are now fully accurate? Yes? Do I have a yes to that? Right, okay. So officers there are no plan discrepancies still? No? Okay. Let's have a look then at the relationship of number 20 and 22, because that was one of the refusal reasons last time out. What did we have last time, and what's now been removed?
Right, so as I said in my presentation, this is the refused site plan. Below is the proposed. So what they have done, so yeah, as you can see quite clearly, it's a large 2-storey rear extension across the full width of the house. What they have done now is to step it. So at this point, at first floor level, there is no extension. There is I believe it's 0.6, is it, metre extension at ground floor level here. Nothing at first floor. So in terms of the impact, as you can see, I mean, that was up to here before. It's gone now. There is no, the house currently sits up to this point, and therefore there is no additional impact on number 20. In terms of the basement question, perhaps wasn't clear enough in my presentation, but I'll go back to the basement plan. So with this, we were provided with an FRA and a SUD strategy that was reviewed by the Floodwater Management Officer. Now, it's not just the fact that we've received that. What they've also done, in the original scheme, the basement actually went all the way up to the boundary of number 20. So the concern was that it was physically impossible to have sufficient SUDs and floodwater management measures implemented. Now, they've stepped it in. They've provided an FRA and SUD strategy, which has been reviewed and is deemed to be acceptable. So those are the 2 changes. So
the strategies are not deemed to be acceptable, but because there is sufficient space left at basement level
against each boundary there is a suitable strategy that can be found. Previously, when the basement was built right up to the boundary, that couldn't be achieved. So we are not approving the SUD strategy that has come in. We are asking for the applicants to discuss an appropriate SUD strategy with our flooding officer to come to an appropriate and a positive solution for a strategy.
And that is condition 10.
That's right.
Okay. So for clarity, for absolute clarity, we do not yet have fully acceptable SUD strategies for the basement, but we do believe it's possible to achieve it, and condition 10, which has to be complied with prior to the commencement of any development, including site clearance and demolition. So in other words, as an absolutely first job. Okay, with that said, I'm now going to open it up. Councillor Goddard.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm struggling with this a little bit because of the apparent inconsistency between the drawings that we've seen here, in particular this comparison, and what the petitioner submitted as Appendix 6. Are we permitted to look at Appendix 6 that the petitioner submitted?
We can look at anything we want.
And what I would ask is, if we can, I would be interested in officers' comments as to whether there is, whether that illustration in Appendix 6 is something they recognise, and if they can explain the apparent inconsistency, because certainly Appendix 6 would appear to imply quite considerable overlooking.
Could you just clarify how the overlooking is implied by Appendix 6?
Sorry, can we see the petitioner's slide 6? Can we see?
So you've had it, but it's not on the slideshow.
I mean,
hard copies are.
Okay. Do we not have a copy?
Well, I think the planning officer's got a copy beside me. I have, because I print all these things off. You see. You should know me by now.
The first thing I would say is that the plans that we have in Appendix 6 of the petitioner's documentation is not to scale, and therefore not something that can be relied upon for the purposes of assessing this application. We have scaled plans that we have received, and they are on screen, and they were circulated in your packs. Therefore, we are confident that the dimensions that have been provided are accurate and based on adequate site surveys. Now, overlooking, you've asked as a specific question, there is only a 0.6 metre extension on the boundary which abuts number 20, and there is, so is it that overlooking that you're concerned about?
Well, I'm looking at what the petitioner has provided, and you're telling me it's inaccurate. Is that correct? Because if you look at that middle illustration on the petitioner's slide, Appendix 6, it would appear that there's a very much larger overlap between number 20 and number 22.
Okay, as a question, I've got to be careful with material that's not been verified. We are circulating these things, but we just have to be a little bit careful. Can I ask another question? I'll put a question another way round, which may be helpful, may not be. Have planning officers on site verified the positions of these various buildings? In other words,
through you, Chairman, what we see there is that the real correlation between.
Yeah, but I'm asking, has that been verified by planning officers? Because if it has, then we have to take it.
Yeah, these are the amended drawings that were done after the survey was undertaken, because the initial submission we weren't sure was correct, because the neighbour had raised concerns about it. So we asked the applicant to survey the properties either side to ensure that the drawings were correct, and we're happy that they are.
As the planners have been on site. Right. If planning officers have been on site and are happy that the relationships you're being shown the plans, then we have to. That's the basis we have to work from. I haven't got reasonable doubt at the minute. So, Councillor Higgins.
Yeah, I've got two problems with this. The first problem is I don't like the fact that we're saying with something like a basement, it's not. I don't feel comfortable leaving that till the flood office has decided. So I want that information before me, because digging down on neighbouring properties, as we know in Hillingdon, is a lot of clay and can cause a lot of issues with subsidence and stuff. So really, I need to see that here before I can really honestly give a judgment on this application. The other problem I have with this is also there's a lift. There's a lift that goes from the basement and then disappears in between the building somewhere. So can officers clarify that?
Which plans are we on?
These are the ones in front of me.
Yeah, which plan pages to help
Okay, fine.
for me?
Let's go. We have it in the basement, the lift, and then it gets lost on the first floor.
Which page numbers?
209.
Okay.
So where's the lift there on the first floor?
There's a lot missing there.
Oh, it reappears on...
No, the officer to my right is ringing sets of plans and finding it.
Yeah, because I can see it on the second floor, on page 210.
She can see it on the first and the ground and the basement.
Well, show me then, because it's not here.
No, you...
The existing one.
Which page numbers are we on? 213, 212, 213, 214, I think. Yeah, it does appear as if it's there.
Okay.
Councillor Flynn, have I held... Were you
that's
going to come in on this
that's
one?
Fine. Not on this
point. No. Just hang on. I thought I still had you held. No, yeah.
And the last issue, we did have... Well, there's two last issues. We had this basement terrace area. We had issues whether it was covered or it wasn't covered.
Not on this one.
No, on the previous one.
Do we?
I remember discussing this. Has it got now?
I think you may be on another estate.
Okay, maybe. Okay, sorry.
but the principle we did discuss.
The principle of this is
but on another estate, as we all know well.
Has this actually got some sort of security so people don't fall into it from the garden? And my last point really is, with all of this development, I don't understand why we are still allowing the building at the back of the property. I mean, there's so much space on this property.
Okay.
I would say that was overdevelopment.
Well, let me take the bits. The comments regarding the flood stuff. In essence, all you're ever going to get in the report would be the Flood and Water Management Officer has reviewed the information supplied and is happy that the strategy works, or words to that effect.
But if it was that easy, why hasn't he done that, or she?
Well, they haven't done it before they've got their permission.
I'm sorry, the application's coming to us before committee. Surely these things should be in order.
It's conditioned to be supplied before commencement. I'll take a legal officer's view on it, but I suspect I know what I'm going to be told.
It's perfectly acceptable for the conditions pre-commencement. So the conditions perfectly acceptable. You've heard also that the floods officer has actually confirmed that she is happy it is possible. It's just because they don't know the form that it will take. So it's the form that will be agreed, but what it can successfully be implemented so that there won't be issues with flooding.
For you, Chairman, again, I mean, I've been on building sites and I know how they dig out foundations. How are we going to guarantee on digging that metre is not going to be collapsed into the hole anyway? I know it's a building control issue and blah blah blah. We can go down there, but the point I'm making is that we are talking about a basement. We're not talking about a 6-foot for foundation.
No,
we're talking about maybe 20 foot down.
I know.
And that does concern me. And if there is possible to have, if this was to go ahead, to have some sort of condition to make sure that was actually boarded, because it can be boarded. Builders can actually board it before agree with concrete.
Let's just deal with the wording and conditions in a moment. I'm not sure if we are straying too far, but let me just hold that for a minute. You also had a point about the light well or the terrace, but can I hold that as well for 2 seconds? Because I'll see where this goes in a minute. Councillor Flynn, you wanted to come in, then Councillor Oswald.
Thank you, Chairman. As we've been asked to do, we've been essentially asked to look at two things which the inspector raised as the reasons for his refusal. One is obviously the relationship with the neighbouring property. I have to say that I feel as though they've done what they can actually on this, so I'm reasonably comfortable with the reduction in size and scale, and I can see that has been reduced, so I'm not sure there's much we can do on that. Councillor Higgins has slightly stolen my thunder, although on the SUDS issue, as it's his prerogative to do, but my main concern really is around the fact that I think we've been asked as members to give a sort of certain leap of faith here, because we're told, and what I don't understand is why, given the SUDS was a reason for refusal both before this committee and at the inspectorate, why they have come back with the same proposals. Again, it states here the same SUDS proposals as were submitted previously, which were not acceptable in the last application. I just wonder why it is that they haven't actually responded to the refusal reason from the inspectorate and actually adapted that. So I appreciate these are very technical matters which are beyond the knowledge of members of this committee perhaps, but ultimately we are asked to make decisions, and it strikes me that this is very heavily conditioned, and as I say, it is a bit of a leap of faith that we're being asked to make to approve this, so that's really my only concern.
Matt, can I ask you to...
Again, I'll try to explain before, just with the basement, the difference between, I note your point, but the difference is last time the reason we refused it on that ground was because the flood water management officer wasn't confident that any flood alleviation or SUDS measures could be implemented because the proposed basement was right up to the boundary of number 20. Now that it's been stepped in, so it has been amended, and in officer's view, the applicant has made a concerted effort to address the issue, albeit I note your point about this documentation, and the flood water management officer is now content that these matters can be addressed. The issue before was she wasn't contented that they could because of the design of the basement. The design of the basement has been amended. She's now happy that they can be, hence the condition.
Just one further thing. We have lost appeals where the detail of the SUDS has not been submitted at application stage, and where we have where we have felt we should refuse it on that basis, because the condition is deemed to be sufficient and reasonable for its imposition, because we accept that it can be provided, but as Nicole pointed out, legal colleagues, the form is yet to be agreed.
Okay. I get that. Councillor Oswald?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, I was going to ask about the SUDS, but I think that's more or less been dealt with. The other thing that I wanted to know about, it says under flood and water management comments, the last application submitted some groundwater investigations which were undertaken at the wrong time of the year to understand the risk. Well, when is the right time of the year? I don't fully understand that.
I suspect when it's wetter would be my kind of guess, but I suspect if you do it in the height of the dry season, you might not find any water.
But then that's not going to give you a true picture, is it? I don't think. But anyway, it is what it is. But I mean, look, I think the applicant, Chairman, has gone to considerable lengths, I think, and I think Councillor Flynn's right. It is a leap of faith, but what's before us is what's before us. And if the SUDS issue isn't right, then it won't go ahead anyway. It's got to be right. So I think what's before us is, I'm quite comfortable with it now, because the applicant has gone to some length to straighten this out so that it's more acceptable, and I think it is now probably, it's compliant, it's in policy, and I'll move the officer's recommendations, Chairman.
Before I take that, can I just check two matters? The ward council raised the question of shadowing, and I don't know if that has any impact, but we ought to just confirm. And Councillor Higgins also raised the question of that terrace and safety around the terrace. Yes, I was trying to get my words right. Matt, please.
Thank you, Chairman. There isn't a shadowing diagram per se, but there is a daylight and sunlight assessment,
right,
which is favourable.
Right.
And in terms of the basement, we have a section, and there appears to be something over it, but I can't tell what it is from the drawing. whether it's just a drawing line or whether it's actually a cover. But we could potentially, if members see fit.
I'm going to suggest
that.
before we approve this that we add that to the landscaping condition, because that's the most just to make sure it's not missed. I'm not saying it will be, but then at least it makes sure when the landscaping condition comes in there is a commentary. Councillor Higgins.
Yeah, my other point was about the building at the rear of the property. Is that considered in part of the scheme? And if so, does that push it over bulk and density?
I suspect not. But
Well, it is part of the scheme, yeah, but it's an outbuilding and a very large garden, and it's a relatively small one. It's a gym.
we cite that in part of our bulk refusal reason last time out.
No,
it
wasn't an issue
property.
last time. Yeah, and it's the same outbuilding.
There's technicality there. We either did it as bulk and thing for the whole application, which we did, or did we specifically state that wasn't part of it? No. There is a very valid concern.
I think you're splitting a little on me.
But you know.
Okay, officers are saying they consider it to be acceptable, given the size of the garden and the size of the building. And we lose outbuilding refusal reasons on a pretty regular basis.
And again, through you, Chair, we were discussing about the digging of the foundations and the see if there's a way that we can make sure that doesn't fall in.
I think we've strayed beyond our remit, but
that would be covered with building control. It's not something that we could condition
straight beyond
here,
our remit.
so, yeah.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Flynn.
I was merely going to, with some concern over the SUDS issues, but I do feel we've had pretty strong guidance from both the planning officer and the legal team that these conditions will be extremely robust. So in the light of that, I will second Councillor Oswell's recommendation for approval.
Subject to what's in the addendum, and with condition 8 being amended to ensure that the any terracing around that basement is appropriate. All those in favour, please show. 2, 3, 4, 5. Where have I got? 6. All those against? Abstaining? 2. 6-2. It's still approved. Right. That one's approved. Item 7 is not with us. Item 8, 53 to 55, the Broadway, Joel Street, Northwood, Matt.
Thank you, Chairman. The application seeks planning permission for the subdivision and part change of use of the existing drinks establishment, use class A4, and an asset of community value to create a retail shop with the retention of the existing public house at a reduced capacity. The proposal also involves minor alterations to the shop front. I'll just take members through the slides. Members will recognise this as the William Jolly Public House in Northwood. Northwood Hills, apologies, I do apologise. Existing plans and elevations. Again, some site layouts. There we go. So that's so on the left-hand side, you've got the proposed A1 retail unit, and on the right-hand side will be the retained pub. The application site is located on the east side of the Broadway, Joel Street, immediately to the north of Northwood Hills tube station. Mainly residential street. Ferndown runs along the back of the Broadway Parade. In terms of the proposals, the proposed subdivision and change of use would not result in the loss of a public house use or the asset of community value, although it would reduce its existing floor space. The proposal would not lead to a shortfall in the provision of use class A4 uses within the Northwood Hills Town Centre and would not represent an unnecessary loss of a valued facility. The proposed units would have adequate space and appropriate delivery and servicing arrangements. Given the asset of community value designation, the response to the public consultation is particularly important, and there appears to be greater public support than objection to the proposals. On balance, the proposal is considered to be acceptable. It is further considered that refusal of permission would leave the unit vacant for a further indefinite period of time, acting against the vitality of the Northwood Hills town centre. As such, the proposed development is considered acceptable in principle, and with regard to impact on the character and appearance of the area, the local highway network, residential amenity, waste and access. I'll just take members to the addendum, which is again quite substantial for this. What we have done on the back, we received further comments from the Northwood Hills Residents Association after the report was published, raising a number of concerns. So what we've done is to try and address them by adding extra conditions. There's a restriction on deliveries and servicing hours. This has actually been lifted directly from the original permission for the pub from 1998, so they're the same hours as anybody. If some other pub operator came in tomorrow, they could operate under these conditions, so we've just put them back on. Just an additional comment from the Highways Officer, just to clarify a couple of points. In our condition, we asked for 17 cycle parking spaces. That was a mistake. It should have been 5. We amend that condition. And also, just to clarify, the A1 servicing is proposed to be from the rear, and the A4 unit will be serviced from Joel Street. There is a delivery bay across the bridge on the same side as the pub. We're proposing a servicing refuse collection strategy condition, and and there's a bespoke condition because there's an issue currently with the gym use at first floor level, and some of the parking spaces will have to be moved to accommodate the proposals. So we want to ensure that the gym use and the proposed uses have adequate parking and cycle parking spaces, and also just another bespoke condition to ensure that delivery and servicing bay located to the rear of the site for the A1 use will be kept clear and remain unobstructed for the lifetime of the development. And that is that. And for the reasons summarised, it's recommended that the application be approved. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. I have petition support on this one. I'm taking one speaker between applicants, petitioners and anybody else. So anybody coming forward to speak? I kind of knew what would happen. Ready?
Yep. I had prepared a longer presentation, but I think I'll keep it short because I think the presentation by the officer was quite good in setting out what we're trying to achieve. But to just reiterate that since 2016, this premises has been empty. The client's here today, and he's been trying to find someone. Well, actually, he's a publican himself, and he'd hoped to open it as a pub and bring it back into use. Unfortunately, the cost of renovating it was somewhere between 900,000 up to 1.1 million pounds. That made it totally prohibitive. So in a realistic approach, we decided to consult with the local community because we understand the importance of this asset of community value to the local community. That was carried out in February this year. We consulted over 1,000 local homes. That was attended very well. Big crowd, I think, for that sort of planning consultation exercise. And the feedback was really important to shape what you see here before you tonight. Because originally we had hoped to possibly replace the entire pub with something more viable. But having listened to the local community, we understood the importance of actually retaining that asset of community value in some form or another. I have here today with me Richard Morgan, who's a local commercial letting agent from Northwood with many years of experience, and I think he'll just explain a little bit about the market and the reasons why this sort of application needed to come forward.
Yeah, if I may, I've been dealing with this property since the landlord acquired it and Wetherspoons vacated. And I think it's essential to understand that Wetherspoons, as a condition of their lease, stripped the place completely bare. It would have been a different situation if the pub fittings and fixtures had been left in situ. So, faced with the huge cost of fitting it out, we couldn't find a a viable operator, whereas the number of inquiries from retailers, despite the downturn in retail fortunes, the supermarket that wants to take the space for A1 has a good proposal for it. There's reduced size of the pub part. We have been marketing that in anticipation and hope of getting consent for the division, and I'm pleased to say we've actually got 4 offers to lease that from viable operators who understand the cost of fitting out that reduced size, and I think if it's approved, it will bring that building back into life very, very quickly in both parts, so we can be sure that the supermarket would be in and operating hopefully before Christmas, and a new pub would be shortly following on. I hope that helps.
And also, just to touch upon the addendum items, because there was quite a few conditions added, which we just saw just now, but we've just discussed them briefly in the seating area, and we're actually satisfied with all of these. We understand, obviously, that it needs to be operational and it needs to work and not impact on any local residential amenity or anything like that. So we just hope that you feel, well, you go with the officer's recommendation and agree that this would enhance the vitality and vibrancy of Northwood Hills.
Thank you for that. There's one other matter that we're likely to potentially add to the list that you've already seen. I'd like to keep 1 or 2 bits quiet, just in case you think you've worked out what we're going to do next. If members are satisfied with this proposal, and we will discover that in a moment or two, I'm going to suggest to them that we tie these 2 uses together. In other words, to ensure that we don't wind up accidentally with the A1 coming nicely forward and opening and the A4 suddenly miraculously disappearing, and we've still then got a half-empty pub, but we've let half the pub go, so we've lost half our community asset. So I'm going to be, and the wording will have to be agreed afterwards, but if the committee agree with my thought process, that we actually link the 2 so that the permission for this is linked to us getting a pub back effectively, because I know they're separate, but we do really want this pub to reopen. We understand the viability issues around the big building. I think most people are getting that, but I'm not sure if that's going to give you guys any problems.
Yes, I'll just repeat what I said earlier. We have got 4 potential operators for the pub, and they're keen to, for one of them to be selected, and they are all genuine pub operators, not people who really want to run a restaurant but will pretend it's a pub. It's been spelled out to them.
Yeah. In which case, that shouldn't give you any issues then. Good. Members have any other questions? Sorry, I jumped in first.
No, I don't have a question. I just wanted to take part in the...
Right. Do you have a question for the... Yep.
Could I ask, you talk about the preferred, so you talk about the 4 operators. Do you have a preferred operator in mind at this stage? And also, do any of these operators have experience of running pubs anywhere near the local area at all?
Yes, I can tell you that 3 of the proposals are from existing operators, 2 of whom run premises quite near. The 4th is a new venture, and I think they're possibly less likely to be considered by the landlord as a viable operator, but the other 3 are good, strong prospects with a lot of experience.
Thank you for that. Okay, no other questions? Thank you very much. Right, I'll open it for debate. I'll take Councillor Oswald, then Councillor Flynn.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, they've obviously worked quite hard to get something sorted out here, because there's nothing worse on a high street to have an empty shop, an empty building, an empty office, or anything empty that's going to be empty for some time. So when something like this comes on stream, I mean, I know the pub Wetherspoons is gone, but the high street's going to retain another pub, and I think they're quite important, as long as it's got Guinness in it. But I think that they're quite important, and I think this is a good application, Chairman, and I'm quite happy to move the officer's recommendation with the condition that you mentioned earlier about the...
Well, I guess that's what I did. Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a local ward councillor, obviously I know this site extremely well. What I don't know if has been actually clear in terms of the presentation is actually its proximity to the station, which you can just see on the right-hand side of the image there. This really is a site that, when it was an operational pub, was the heart of Northwood Hills. It was always pretty full. I don't think there was any question marks over its viability when it was owned by Wetherspoons. If I may just briefly say, what I do think has been a disgrace is the fact that this building has been empty for 3 years. Wetherspoons, as we've heard, stripped the pub out, left it in a shocking condition, and created a situation for the applicant that they could not find for some time a viable solution to this. However, one has to say also that the building has been left in a pretty awful condition over the last 3 years. It is rotting away and it is in a shocking state. So for that reason, I have to say that I do welcome the proposal to bring forward this development to try and bring this much loved former site back into use, and the fact that there is a pub element to this, albeit only at 50%, is something I am prepared to accept for the greater good of bringing this site back into use and the positive benefits that it will have to Northwood Hills in reanimating Joel Street and bringing new people to the area. So, on balance, I am happy to support this, but I would stress the importance of those conditions, particularly around deliveries, and also the importance of the fact that both these developments need to be brought forward at the same time. We shouldn't be in a position where the retail is opening, but the pub element is lying empty. So they need to be brought forward and opened at the same time. Providing we have that, I'm prepared to support.
Okay. We have a proposer. I think I may have a seconder. Do I have anybody else got any comment on this one, or are we happy to move forward? So there'll be one amended condition which will tie the two together, and the head of planning will work on that for me. Apart from that, it's as per the report and the addendum. All those in favour, please clearly show me. Good, that one's approved. Right, I now move to agenda item 9, 39 Whelan Road, Northwood.
Thank you, Chairman. The application seeks permission for a Part 2-storey front extension, first floor side rear extensions, first floor side extensions, single storey rear extension, enlargement of the rear dormer, detached outbuilding to the rear for use as a gym, games room, and alterations to the elevations. It is important to note that the property has already had significant extensions in the past, including to the front, side and rear, and benefits from a rear dormer. 39 Whelan Road is a substantial 5-bedroom house, 2.5-storey detached house, located on a residential street on the Gateshill estate in Northwood. The area is characterised by large individually designed properties located within large plots. I'll take you to the photos first. That is the house at present. As you can see, it has been modified in the past, including various elements to the side and this to the front. The current proposals are thus. Existing. Proposed. So you've got the existing here, and the proposed. What you will see is you've got a Part 2-storey side extension there with a small 1.1 metre element to the side. On this side, you can see a setback side extension, 2-storey side extension. This is set back by approximately a metre. And the scheme has been amended from the original proposals to ensure a 1.5 metre setting from both boundaries. I'll take members through the elevation. Through the floor plans. You've got the outbuilding, ground, first floor, and then the roof. So you can see the extensions at first floor level here and here. There's also a front porch. So that currently, if I just take you back, back to the photo, it'll be easier to see. You've got a sort of a canopy that's going to be infilled as a porch, so the roof will stay form will stay the same, but it'll be infilled, with the front door being brought forward. There was a scheme on this site that was previously refused by members a year or so ago, so I've done a comparison here. This here is what was refused. If you look at the front elevation, you may recall this feature was put in the front, which was sort of fairly alien to the property, and was refused. This is the current proposal. What you'll note as well is that the sprocket roof that the house has, if I could take back to the photo, sort of sprocket roof has been maintained, that feature. So what you'll see is there's an extension on this first floor bit, and also the garage is being removed, which will be part of the ground floor, and then there's a 1.1 metre first floor extension. So this bit comes to the flush with the front of the house, and this bit will be set back, albeit that's being pulled forward. So I'll show you the rear as well. They're getting rid of this feature, and there's going to be a circa 4 metre rear extension with flat roof. So I'll just take you back to the plans to show you. Where are we? So you can, excuse me. So you can see that's the rear flat roof rear extension. You've got the side extensions here. The garage is replaced with a window, and it's slightly filling in that gap, but still maintaining 1.5 metre gap. The proposed first floor southern side rear extension will be constructed flush with the front elevation of the existing house and will measure approximately 1.1 metres in width. The proposal will be characterised by a pitched roof measuring a maximum height of 7.9 metres, which would be parallel to the original roof, which complies with the ridge height for the first floor side extensions as specified in paragraph 5.7 of H-SPD. The proposed first floor side rear extension, which is on the right hand side, if I just show you a floor plan, so this bit which sort of wraps around, would wrap across the rear wall of the existing house to a maximum depth of 4.4 and 10.55 metres. The H-Estates extension should be to detached dwellings up to maximum depth of 4 metres would be acceptable. However, in this case, the 4.4 metre extension wouldn't have any impact on adjoining neighbours' amenity, and as such, a refusal on this ground cannot be substantiated as appeal. The Conservation Officer, so the original scheme was amended following concerns raised by the GRA. So the Conservation Officer actually remains concerned that the gaps to the sides of the property are reduced. A 1.5 metre gap will be maintained on both sides, however, as I've explained. It is not considered that the marginal harm caused to the area's special local character by further additions to this property could be defended to appeal, given that the 1.5 metre separation distances are achieved and that the house has been quite heavily extended in the past and lost some of its original character. The proposed rear dormer would be set down from the ridge by 0.2 metres, which is considered to be sufficient to appear, if I take you back to that, sorry, apologies, which is considered sufficient to appear subordinate or secondary to the main roof slope and will not have a harmful impact on the character and appearance of the existing house and street scene. If I take members to the addendum, members received additional comments from the Gatehill Residents Association. I also circulated their original comments as there was concerns raised that their comments hadn't been fully reported in the report. And we're also proposing a condition that requires 25% soft landscaping to be provided in the front garden. As you'll see from the photo, current house has that element there, which isn't very much. And for the reasons summarised, it is recommended that the application be approved. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Susan Howes.
Good evening. I'm speaking on behalf of Gatehill Residents Association. You should hopefully have received 4 handouts in advance of this meeting. On handout 1, you can see how much of this property has already been extended, including a 2-storey front extension and an open porch. On the right-hand diagram, I've also added shading to the 2008 application to show the current proposals. We do not believe that the proposal to allow the side extensions to be flush with the front wall of the property complies with policy, And you will note from reading the planning history in the officer report that several almost identical applications to this have been refused previously on the grounds of size, scale, bulk and design. So, looking at tonight's application, I have a question for you. Where is the appearing subordinate part of the extension proposals? We can't spot it, and so this lack of appearing subordinate is our primary objection to these plans. Both HDAS and the Local Plan Part 2 policies repeatedly advise that extensions should be designed to appear subordinate, and I've copied several of the policies on the second handout and included the diagram which is printed on page 138 of the DMPs which illustrates this. We believe that the requirement for appearing subordinate has been overlooked. For example, on the left-hand side of the property, there is currently a single-storey extension, and the proposal is for a second storey to be built flush with the front wall of the house. Policy says it should be set back a minimum of 1 metre. Well, it isn't, it's flush, and so it's contrary to policy. In the middle of the front wall, the porch is to become enclosed. This is in addition to the previously added 2-storey extension, making a front extension of around 70% of the width of the original house. On the right-hand side, the ground floor setback is to disappear, and the double-storey section is to be brought forward as well. The minimum 1 metre setback will not be present here either. We believe that the lack of appearing subordinate will have a detrimental impact on what's left of the original property and on the street scene. The property will take up an overwhelming width of the plot and will be visually intrusive to this area of special local character. Our second concern is the frontage, and you will note that the frontage is almost barren. The fourth handout I submitted shows the thin sliver of soft landscaping, which is nowhere near the required minimum of 25%. Some of the noted characteristics of this area of special local character are the tall boundary hedges and landscaping between and in front of the properties. We are pleased, though, that the addendum says that a landscaping condition has now been added. Due to the sloping nature of this part of the estate, water runs either onto the neighbour lower down the hill or onto the road. Neither the applicants nor the officer have addressed sustainable drainage, which, according to the council's website, is, and I quote, a material planning consideration. For example, there are no plans for soakaways or other ways of avoiding surface water running to the sewers. You will perhaps remember I have previously submitted photographs of properties lower down the estate which are flooded. Our fourth area of concern are the numerous side-facing windows which we believe should be conditioned to comply with policy regarding obscure glazing and non-opening below 1.8 metres for obvious privacy reasons. So to summarise, we have 4 areas of concern. The first 3 are the lack of soft landscaping in the front and side garden, the lack of sustainable drainage and the side-facing windows, which we suggest could be addressed by further suitably worded conditions. However, it's the final concern, this total lack of appearing subordinate of the proposed side and front extensions, which leads us to believe that this proposal should still be refused. We ask that the applicants be required to set back these extensions so as to comply with published policy. Thank you.
Could I just clarify, you're accepting that the addendum has dealt with the landscaping issue at the front in terms of 25%?
Well, I've had a quick read through it this evening, but not in great detail, but
there is a
take officers...
Yeah, there is a condition now requiring it to be 25%, so that is compliant.
Yeah.
There is a condition requiring prior to commencement that the sustainable water management has got to be dealt with, so that is in the condition list that I've now got.
Okay.
So I think that one may be...
I've not seen
the
that.
obscure glazing, I think, does need attention, but I'll come to that, because the more important bit is we need to deal with the first bit.
Okay,
that's the really critical bit.
I think so.
Do members have any questions? That was just my list. No, we're good. There's no agent or applicant that I can see, so I'm assuming we're good. Right. Officers could start by explaining how this is subordinate, I suppose, because that's where it's going to rise or fall. Everything else we can condition.
Thank you, Chairman. In terms of the extensions appearing subordinate, the lady from GRA, in the second page of her comments, has used the correct diagram from the emerging local plan. However, in front of me, I have the HDAS, which, and I will read to you what it states, and this is actually the current guidance and policy. Detached and end of terrace houses. Two-storey side extensions should be integrated with the existing house. There is no specific requirement for a setback from the front of the house. So that's what officers have gone with. This is the current policy. So to refuse it on that, when we actually have a policy that doesn't require a setback, I believe would be difficult to justify appeal. In terms of what they are actually doing, is they've sort of done a half and half, if you like. On this side of the house, they have actually set it back, and on this house, it's actually 1.1 metres. The side extension here is 1.1 metres wide. So in terms of, from A, it meets HDAS. B, will a 1.1 metre wide extension really have that much impact on the house? We've taken the view as officers that it wouldn't. Maybe if I show you on here. So they've got that first floor side extension which they're going to pull forward to, I think, within 1.5 metres of the front, and this bit here on top of the garage is it'll be 1.1 metres widened. In our view, with the extensions that are already on the house and the changes that have been made in the past, we don't feel would have a great impact on the house, on the character, or the subordination.
Members, anybody want to take it out? Councillor Higgins?
I do sympathise with residents on the thing, but I find this one is very difficult for me to sort of jump all over it like I usually do if I don't like something.
Well, I won't for you.
No, there is, I mean, just one clarity, that there was sort of some diagram, on the diagram, some building at the back, but that's not part of this application, correct?
Hang on, there's a detached outbuilding to rear for use as gym games room.
Okay, so that's in it as well, isn't it?
Same as the last, well, yes, yeah, we've been here before tonight.
And, obviously, I mean, they're having second bite of a cherry. I don't know whether, do we take any PD rights last time away, or we...
Huh? I think we just refused it, so we can't take PD rights away when we refuse, can we?
All right, I mean, again, as long as these things can't...
We have taken PD off, yes, we've taken PD off.
And that can't be, the rear building cannot be used as a habitable room.
That's gym only.
Yeah, gym only, fine. Well,
let me just double check, actually. It's down as a gym.
I would like it if it was...
I just wonder whether, I've seen a condition on other applications where we actually are very specific that it's... Is that on there?
Yeah, the
last line of condition 6. Yep, okay, so we have.
On that, no, I mean...
Can I just add a couple? And the slipped an application when I was looking at this a moment ago, and I thought the SUDS was on. The SUDS isn't on, so it'll have to go on. Thank you to the planning officer for drawing. I looked at the next one, not this one. So SUDS needs to go on, and I think obscure glazing, if there's any obscure glazing needs on the sides, because it sounds like there is. And there's not. I mean, we'll get officers to double check it. Councillor thing.
Is the gym at the back, is that conditioned that it can't be used as a like a commercial enterprise? Because you'll be surprised the number of yoga
can only be used with a purpose stated.
Like that pop up.
Yeah, it can only be used with a purpose stated, which is a gym games room. That's what we've agreed. Yeah. So yeah.
Ancillary to the main dwelling house.
And ancillary to the main house. Yeah. Anybody got anything else on this one? I'm not sensing anyone's managing to, however reluctantly, find anything that they could do with it. Councillor Higgins, are you going to move
I'm going
to
just go with officer recommendation with those...
As amended.
As amended with those other...
I'll second it, Chairman.
Thank you very much. All those in favour, please show me. Thank you. All that's unanimously approved. Right. I now get to agenda item 10. Agenda item 10 was deferred from the last meeting where speaking rights were used up. It was the subject of a site visit last Friday. The primary concern from the last meeting was trees on site. we have the trees officers were with us at the site visit and have clarified the position on trees, as has the addendum. So, Matt, would you just like to fill us in beyond that, please?
Thank you, Chairman. As the Chairman just said, the application was deferred at the 17th of July in North Planning Committee for a member's site visit to be undertaken. As members will recall, the proposal is to demolish the existing Scout Hut building and to build 3 times 3 bed and 1 times 4 bed dwellings with associated parking and amenity space. I'll just take you through the plans quickly. I'm sure you do remember them. Yeah, so again, there's a site with a proposal. Okay. 4 houses. I mean, members assessed the scheme last time and raised concerns about the potential impact on trees. As you were on site last week, you've got the sorry, where is the drawing? There it is. The amended drawing that shows exactly where the TPO trees are. We've received an amended trees and landscape officer comments, which are in the addendum, that explain that the proposals to trim the trees at the moment are fine, and that any future requirements, because they're TPO trees, will be subject to council approval, and therefore we can control that, so there wouldn't be undue pressure to get rid of the trees in the future. We're just making a couple of, on the addendum, just a couple of changes. There's an omission from the last addendum to delete points 2D and 2E of the landscaping condition, as these weren't relevant and were missed off. And also we've received the amended drawings and a technical note from the landscape architect. So we've included those. And for the reasons summarised, it's recommended that the application be approved. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, ward councillors have asked for another opportunity to talk to us, and I've generously agreed. Councillor Riley, I think this one's falling to you by the indications from your colleague.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I know that my colleague, Councillor Cawthorne, spoke on the last occasion, and as a consequence of that, you very graciously attended the site to have a look for yourselves, and you will have seen how long and narrow this particular site is. Residents are very concerned about this because the concomitant conflict between the imperative to build against the ability to keep an area a nice place to live is very difficult. We understand that. But this is seen to be significant overdevelopment. It may not be overdevelopment in strict planning terms, but to have 4 houses in a very narrow and long strip of land like it is, and as I say, you will have seen it, it is something which a lot of the residents in Ladygate Lane and the nearby areas are very concerned about. One of the big problems, of course, is that it is very close to the junction with Berry Street, as you will have seen, and that corner where the block of flats is. I've lived on Berry Street for over 20 years, and probably once every 2 months or so there is a collision on that corner, because it's a very difficult corner to get out of onto Berry Street, and increasing, albeit by, it says in the report, 8 cars, but we all know that the number of cars suggested for various developments almost always exponentially increases. So to have that entrance and exit going out onto Ladygate Lane, with all the traffic that there is at the moment, it may be that HS2 is cancelled as a consequence of the review announced today, but we can't depend on that. So there's an awful lot of traffic already on Ladygate Lane. At the other end, of course, is Whiteheath School, and it's one of the ways of trying to get out of Ruislip. And over the years, it's taken ever longer to get out of Ruislip because of increased traffic. But the real problem is what residents see as overdevelopment and the pressure on that land and its closeness to the back gardens of houses in St Margaret's Road, which it borders onto. So with all those features in mind with regard to the trees and all the other aspects of the site, we ask you to think very, very carefully and oppose this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Members have any questions? No. Thank you very much. Right, I open it up. I'll ask the highways officer for a highways. No. Applicants and petitioner speaking rights were exhausted last time out, so I allowed ward councillors another chance, but that's all I'm allowing. Richard, perhaps you will offer me a highways comment.
Yes, Chair, I will. Yes, very sympathetic to the councillors' comments and concerns on the added generation of activity. However, we can, as professional officers, we can only really rely on databases which indicate a sort of average traffic generation from developments, or any developments like this. And even though with nine space provision, statistically speaking, at peak hours, which is normally our main point of concern in the mornings and the evenings, you would only expect maybe a generation of 2 to 3 vehicles actually utilising or coming out of the access point and coming back in the evening. So in overall activity terms, the proportional uplift in activity in traffic generation is actually quite small. It won't be the 9 space activity which may be initially expected. So it wouldn't really, if it was to be refused on that basis, it wouldn't be a very sustainable reason to defend.
The Scout Hut obviously has its own quantum of trip generation, which is likely to far outstrip the 4 residential properties.
Yes, that's an additional consideration. Okay. Could the officer just confirm for me, I think I know the answer, but I'd like it for the record. In terms of St Margaret's Road and the Larch, I think this is tighter towards the Larchmont than it is St Margaret's Road, but are all the distances actually met? I think some of them are just, but I have a feeling they are. Yeah, I'm just double checking before we sign off.
Yeah, this plan shows that they are, yes.
Yes. Okay. Right. Yep. Okay. No, I was pretty certain I knew where we were, but I wanted. I'll open it for members. Councillor Higgins.
I do sympathise with residents on this one, but I'm finding it. I looked very hard at this one to see if there's any way that there was any opportunity for refusal, because it is sort of like squash them in sort of thing. Very well designed. I don't know. Hopefully they'll be well built as well, but. On that, I will actually go with officer's recommendation on this one.
Is anybody else any other views? Councillor Oswald?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, we're always sympathetic toward councillors from Rice-It, of course, but the whole reason about deferring it for a site visit was the tree issue. It wasn't the buildings.
No.
We were quite happy with that, and the distances, and they were confirmed at the site visit last Friday. Yes, it was last Friday.
It was last Friday.
It was the trees that were the issues, and now that's been dealt with. They're all going to be protected by one ash tree, I believe, that's going to be removed, and probably rightly so. So, yeah, I think, well, I'm happy with it because I've been there, I've seen it, and I think it should be okay, and I'll second the recommendation. Chairman?
I see no other hands, so on that basis, all those in favour of approval, please show me. Thank you, that one's approved. Thank you very much. I just need my colleague to come back, and we can move on. 12 and 13. It should be fairly straightforward now. Actually, I'm doing better than my target. Okay. Thank you all. Items 12 and 13 refer to the same site. One is the advertising consent, the other is the new shop fascias. Could I suggest this one, Matt? Could you put, you've got the current, most of us are familiar with this in the sense it has been subject to planning enforcement, and this is the proposal. So I think that, I mean, I will take questions on it, but that's in essence what you've got. You've got proper shop fronts being put back and signage of a more slimmed down nature, less obtrusive. You can see the previous version, which has generated quite a lot of local heat, quite justifiably. Where are members? Yep. Yep. Yeah. Anybody got no problems with it? No? All those in favour, please show me. Thank you very much. That's 12. Can I take the same for item 13, please? Same proposal and seconder, and agreed, yeah? Okay. I move to item 14, 12, Kaduna Close. There's an addendum on this one.
Thank you, Chairman. This application seeks full planning consent for the construction of a single-storey rear extension to be used as an ancillary store to the main building. A rendered flat-roofed extension has already been constructed without the benefit of planning permission, and this is to be demolished and rebuilt in brick to match the main building. Just take members through site plans. So you've got the Eastcote Tennis Club there, it's just behind it. The plans I'll just show you on Jungle Monkeys, if you're familiar with that, where that is. You've got an existing extension that hasn't been built particularly well. It's going to be demolished. They're proposing a new one. That's the rear of it. Basically, they're going to store all this stuff that's inside. As you can see, it doesn't quite match what's there at the moment, the current thing. What you will notice from the site photo here is you have a tree, a protected tree right next to it, within a few centimetres, maybe, I don't know, 40, 50 centimetres. So, would you like me to go through the entire presentation or just go to the addendum? Because it's, yeah. So what we've done in the addendum, because of that, we've noticed that tree is there. We're proposing a couple of conditions, because what we're worried about is that if we're to approve this and they were to when they demolish this building, they could affect the tree. Subsequently, when they're digging foundations, they could. So we're proposing, if I can find where we're at there, a couple of conditions. One, that the tree should be retained, and another one that we would like a demolition. So prior to demolition of the existing structure, a detailed demolition and construction method plan to be submitted. I've spoken to the trees officer, who's happy that it can be done. It's just need the correct information, and also we're just tweaking the description of development for clarity to add, so single-storey rear extension to be used as a store for the D2 leisure facility. For the reasons summarised, it is recommended that the application be approved. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, Councillor Higgins.
Those things about the tree, I'm quite happy to go forward. I'll go with Oscar's recommendation.
Seconder, Councillor Goddard, thank you very much. Anybody got any other views? No? All those in favour, please show. That one's done. Thank you very much. I now move to item 15, 28 Victoria Road.
Thank you, Chairman. The proposal is for the change of use from A1 shop to a D1 physiotherapy clinic and a D2 yoga studio. The application site is located on the northwest side of Victoria Road. It comprises a currently vacant A1 shop in a 3-storey brick-built building. The site lies within a secondary shopping area of the Ruislip Manor Town Centre. I'll just show members the proposed layout. Got the photos. Sorry. The proposed plan. So you'll see you've got. I'm going to have to look at the. I cannot see what I'm looking at on the screen. There we go. You've got the yoga studio to the rear and the physiotherapy reception area here, physiotherapy, and the yoga studio at the back. The Reanimating Manor has a shopping survey was carried out by the council in October 2017, which demonstrated that the share of A1 frontages within the secondary shopping area was at 39%. Policy S12 states that Class A1 shops should remain a predominant use in the secondary area, and the local planning authority would expect at least 50% of the frontage to be in Class A1 use. However, in this case, the applicant has provided justification explaining that the shop has been vacant for 226 days at the time of the submission, and that it had been marketed. Also, given that the proposed uses are quite fitting and would be generally well used within a shopping town centre, so the loss of the A1 use would not be detrimental to the vitality and viability of the town centre. Just going on to the addendum, we're just proposing to delete the cycling parking condition because cycle parking cannot actually be fitted on the site. And also we are proposing a condition to ensure that the use is retained as a physiotherapy clinic and a yoga studio, and no other use within those two use classes. And for the reasons summarised, it is recommended that the application be approved. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Oswald.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, another empty shop being brought back into use. Good, I think. I'll move the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Hagger, I think you were going to second. And nobody else is raising comments. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. That one's approved. Can I ask for the live YouTube feed to be switched off, please?